The screen door banged shut like a judge's gavel, sealing me out into the muggy Alabama night, my father's roar chasing me down the cracked driveway. "You're no son of mine, Alexander. Get the hell off my property before I call the cops." I was 14, barefoot in cut-off jeans, the backpack slung over one shoulder holding nothing but a toothbrush, a dog-eared copy of The Catcher in the Rye, and the crumpled $20 bill I'd swiped from the kitchen jar. My entire inheritance from Henry Blackwood. Rain pelted the gravel like buckshot as I stumbled toward the road, the thunderclap drowning out my sobs, but not the vow burning in my chest. One day, I'd come back not as the scared kid he broke, but as the man who'd pieced himself together from the shards. That night in 2007, Mobile felt like the end of the world. A sticky swamp of Spanish moss and Bible Belt judgment, where folks whispered about those kinds like we were some biblical plague. Henry had always been a hard man, forged in the steel mills up north before drifting south for cheaper beer and football Sundays. He was the kind of father who taught you to throw a spiral before you could tie your shoes, but when I came out, stammering it over burnt burgers at the Formica table, my heart hammering like a jackrabbit, he didn't yell at first. He just stared, fork midway to his mouth, grease dripping onto the plate. Then the fork clattered, and the storm broke. "What the fuck did you just say?" he growled, his face twisting like I'd confessed to murder. By dawn, I was gone. The locks changed before the sun crested the pines. I hitchhiked north, thumb out on I-10, cars blurring past like indifferent ghosts. A trucker with a faded Marines tattoo picked me up outside Pensacola, his cab reeking of Camel lights and regret. "Runaway?" he grunted, not unkindly. I nodded, throat too raw to lie. He dropped me in Atlanta, slipping me a greasy 10-spot and a warning. "World's full of wolves, kid. Keep your eyes open." Atlanta was a blur of shelters and soup kitchens, where I learned to spot the real predators, the ones who offered a couch with strings attached. I crashed on park benches, scavenged dumpsters behind Waffle Houses, and once, in a fevered dream of hunger, I shoplifted a loaf of bread from a Piggly Wiggly. The shame burned hotter than the empty ache in my gut. School? Forget it. I forged a note from Aunt Helen and enrolled in a public high under a fake name, Alex Rivera, after some soap opera character. But truancy officers sniffed me out by sophomore year. That's when I found the library, that great American equalizer, air-conditioned stacks of forgotten dreams. I devoured books like they were oxygen, Steinbeck's Dusty Migrants, Baldwin's Aching Confessions in Giovanni's Room. James Baldwin got under my skin, his words a mirror to the loneliness gnawing at me. If you love a man, they try to transcend the incident. I didn't know what transcending meant yet, but I clung to it like a lifeline. By 16, I'd clawed my way into a foster home in Decatur, a splintery shotgun shack run by Mrs. Eloise, a widow with bingo arms and a heart like overheated taffy. She didn't ask about the scars, emotional or the faint one on my knuckles from punching a mirror after my first awkward fumble with a boy at a church youth group. "God's got a plan for strays," she'd say, sliding me extra cornbread. It was there I met Jamal, another foster kid, all lanky limbs and easy grins. We bonded over stolen smokes behind the garage, trading stories of absent dads. One night, under a harvest moon fat as a pumpkin, he kissed me. Tentative, tasting of spearmint gum and possibility. It was my first real spark, electric and terrifying. But Jamal aged out at 18, shipping off to community college in Chattanooga with a scholarship and a promise to write. The letters came at first, then tapered to postcards, then nothing. Betrayal's first sting. Not malice, just life pulling us apart like kudzu vines. I graduated high school a ghost, GPA scraping by on sheer spite, and bolted for New York City, the promised land of reinvention. The Greyhound deposited me at Port Authority in the summer of 2013, the air thick with hot dog steam and desperation. I waitressed at a dive in Hell's Kitchen, dodging catcalls and tipsy propositions, saving every nickel for community college at LaGuardia. Classes were my church. Literature seminars where professors with tweed elbows quoted Whitman. "I am large, I contain multitudes." And I started to believe it. That's where I met Theo, the TA in my American Lit course, with his wire-rimmed glasses and laugh like summer thunder. Theo was 25, a transplant from Seattle, studying for his MFA while bartending at a queer poetry slam in the Village. Our first real talk was after class, over stale vending machine coffee in the student lounge. I was dissecting The Great Gatsby, ranting about how Gatsby's green light was just a fool's hope across a polluted bay. Or maybe, Theo said, leaning in with eyes like polished oak, it's about building your own damn lighthouse. His hand brushed mine. Accidental, electric, and I felt seen, not as Henry's broken experiment, but as Alexander, whole and hungry. We fell into each other slowly, like leaves in a current. Coffee dates turned to walks in Washington Square Park, where we'd feed the pigeons crusts of bagels and debate if love was tragedy or triumph. Theo introduced me to his world. Drag brunches in Brooklyn, where queens with razor would slay the patriarchy. Pride parades that painted the streets in rainbows of defiance. He was my anchor, patient with my walls, whispering I love you on a fire escape one drizzly October night, the city lights smearing like watercolor below us. You're not your father's discard, he'd say, tracing the freckles on my collarbone. You're a goddamn masterpiece. But love's no fairy tale, not in the American grind. I transferred to NYU on a partial scholarship, majoring in creative writing, but tuition gnawed at my savings like termites. Theo's MFA stipend barely covered his rent, so we pooled pennies in a chipped mug labeled Empire State Fund. Then came the betrayal that nearly capsized us, not from Theo, but from the ghost I'd buried. In 2017, a letter arrived at our walk-up in Bushwick, forwarded from Mrs. Eloise's old address. Henry's scrawl, shaky now, heard you're in the city, got cancer, stage 4, come home, son, we need to talk. Attached was a Greyhound voucher and a photo. Him, gaunt in a hospital gown, the man who'd once bench-pressed me like a barbell now fragile as rice paper. I crumpled it, rage boiling over like bad coffee. He doesn't get to summon me back like a prodigal. I spat to Theo that night, pacing our shoebox apartment while he stirred pasta on the hot plate. Theo pulled me close, his arms a harbor. Maybe it's not summons. Maybe it's surrender. Surrender? To the man who'd made me an orphan at 14? I burned the letter in the sink, watching the flames lick the edges, but the ash clung, stubborn as regret. The conflict simmered through my senior year, deadlines and doubt, Theo's thesis defense looming like a guillotine. We fought, stupidly, over money. I picked up extra shifts at a midtown bookstore, coming home smelling of ink and exhaustion, while he accused me of pulling away. You're punishing him through me, Theo said one night, voice cracking over takeout lo mein. It hit like a sucker punch. Was I? Projecting Henry's rejection onto the one man who'd stayed? The betrayal cut deepest because it was mine, self-sabotage, the ultimate American sin. Climax crashed in May 2019, 2 weeks before graduation. My phone buzzed at 3 a.m. Mrs. Eloise, her voice a gravel whisper. Henry's gone, baby. Past peaceful. Left everything to you. The house, the truck, that old Bible he never cracked. Gone. The word hollowed me out. I flew south on fumes, Theo insisting on coming. His hand steady in mine as the plane dipped toward Birmingham. Mobile welcomed us with cicada hum and the tang of bayou salt. The Blackwood house sagging under live oaks like weary shoulders. The funeral was a sparse affair. Cousins in starched collars murmuring platitudes. Aunt Rita dabbing her eyes with a lace hanky. I stood at the graveside in a borrowed suit, dirt clotting under my Oxfords. The preacher droning about prodigal sons and divine mercy. That's when the real storm hit. Not rain, but revelation. In the will reading, the lawyer slid over a manila envelope. Henry's confessions, scribbled in margins of AA journals and faded postcards. Kicked Alex out 'cause I was scared. Scared I'd raised a sinner. Scared I'd burn too. But every night since, I pray to a God who don't hate. Pages of it, regret etched like fault lines. He'd watched my bylines in the New York Times student supplement, clipped them yellowing to the fridge. Proud. One note ended, ink blotched with tears. Come home. I crumpled against the truck's fender, sobs racking me like fever chills. Theo held me there on the overgrown lawn, his chin on my shoulder, whispering, he's giving you the ending he couldn't. Betrayal transmuted, not Henry's final one, but the lie I'd told myself. That forgiveness was weakness. It wasn't. It was the triumph, hard-won as any degree. We sold the house, donated proceeds to a mobile youth shelter for LGBTQ kids, named it the Henry Blackwood Haven, a quiet rebellion laced with grace. Back in New York, I walked at commencement, Theo whooping from the bleachers, his ring glinting on my finger. We'd eloped in City Hall the week before, witnesses a drag queen and a hot dog vendor. My thesis, a memoir titled Shards and Lighthouses, hit shelves 6 months later, climbing the indie lists on Whispers of Raw Truth. Publishers called it The Great American Redemption, but to me it was just survival's sequel. Years later, in the fall of 2025, I pulled into that same driveway, not as a boy, but a man with a Pulitzer nomination under my belt and Theo's hand in mine. The new owners, a young couple with a rainbow flag fluttering from the porch, invited us for coffee. As we sat on the glider I'd once hidden comic books under, watching their toddler chase fireflies, I felt it, the full circle. Henry hadn't just kicked me out. He'd launched me, unwittingly, into a life of multitudes. Love, the kind that endures betrayals and builds lighthouses from green lights across dirty bays. That's the real American dream. Not triumph over him, but with the boy he lost, the man I became. And in that porch swing creek, under a sky bruised purple with promise, I finally whispered to the wind, "Thanks, Dad, for the shove."